The morning sun in Lagos poured down like gold dust, shining on the rooftops and bouncing off cars that hurried past. The city was already alive, noisy, and impatient, as if every horn and shout was part of a song that never ended. Inside the massive hall of Victoria Island, decorators rushed back and forth, hanging flowers, fixing ribbons, and testing the microphone for the 10th time. It was the day everyone had been waiting for, one of Lagos' biggest weddings. The groom stood near the window of the bridal suite upstairs, looking down at the sea of people arriving. He was tall, dressed in a cream-colored bata that made him look like royalty. His beard was trimmed, his shoes polished like mirrors. But behind his calm face, something darker stirred in his eyes, something heavy, something quiet, something only his heart could feel. He watched the bride's convoy drive in, white cars, laughter spilling out, bridesmaids singing along to Tea Was Savage. She stepped out last, in a glittering lace gown that shimmered like morning dew. The world seemed to pause as she smiled at the cameras, waving gracefully. Everyone adored her. Everyone believed she was the luckiest woman alive. But if anyone looked closely into the groom's eyes at that moment, they would have seen a man holding back a storm. As she entered the hall, guests rose to their feet. Phones flashed. The MC's voice echoed proudly. Ladies and gentlemen, today we celebrate love. Today, two hearts become one. The groom forced a smile as she walked toward him. Her perfume, sweet and expensive, filled his lungs. She looked radiant, confident, and so sure of her victory. Because for her, this wasn't love anymore. It was conquest. He had once loved her with his whole soul, but now his love had turned into something else entirely. The officiating pastor cleared his throat. We are gathered here to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony. The groom's heart pounded, not from joy but from something colder. The audience looked on, friends, colleagues, relatives from far and near. The hall smelled of fresh roses and perfume, but to him, it reeked of betrayal. As the ceremony continued, he couldn't stop remembering the last few days. The phone calls she had to answer, the strange messages she deleted before he could glance at her screen, the whispers that followed her when she thought he wasn't watching. He didn't need anyone confirm what his heart already knew. The truth had come, uninvited, cruel, and merciless. But this was not the place for rage. No, this was the place for revelation. The moment came when the pastor said, "If anyone here knows why these two should not be joined together, speak now or forever hold your peace." The hall fell silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. The bride smiled at the pastor, waiting for the next line, but the groom didn't smile back. He took the microphone from the pastor's hand slowly. The audience murmured. Cameras zoomed in. "Before we continue," he said calmly, "there's something I must say." The bride blinked, confused. The MC laughed nervously, thinking it was part of the surprise. But the groom's voice cut through the hall like a blade. "Today was supposed to be the happiest day of my life," he began. "But it's also the day I learned what love can do to a man when it's built on lies." Gasps echoed. People looked around. The bride's smile froze. Her hand trembled slightly as she adjusted her veil. He turned toward her, eyes burning with restrained pain. "I loved you," he said, his voice low, trembling. "I gave you everything. My trust, my time, my dreams. But what did you give me in return?" Her lips parted, but no sound came out. He reached into his bata pocket and pulled out a phone. The big screen behind the stage came alive. A video started playing, her face unmistakable, laughing with another man. Voices gasped louder now. Women shouted. Men muttered under their breath. The bride stumbled backward, clutching her chest. Her makeup couldn't hide the shock. The man beside her in the video was someone familiar. Her ex, a man she once claimed she blocked months ago. The groom didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. He simply let the video play till the end, then said softly, "This is what she was doing a few nights ago. While I was planning our future, she was planning her next lie." Chaos followed. Guests stood up. The bride tried to speak, but the words refused to come. Tears streaked her face, mixing with her foundation. Her father shouted, "Turn off that video!" But the damage was already done. The groom dropped the microphone on the floor. The sound echoed like thunder. Without another word, he walked out of the hall, leaving behind gasps, murmurs, and shattered pride. The bride collapsed, crying uncontrollably, while her friends tried to lift her up. That day, Lagos witnessed not a wedding but a reckoning. Outside, as he stepped into the hot sunlight, photographers surrounded him, asking questions. He said nothing. He entered his black Range Rover, shut the door, and looked at his reflection in the mirror. His eyes were red, but his heart was clear. He didn't feel victorious. He felt empty but free. That was how his story began. Not with joy, but with the death of an illusion. The news spread faster than wildfire. By evening, social media was flooded with videos from the wedding. Every blog in Nigeria carried the same headline: Groom exposes bride's infidelity during wedding ceremony. Some called him brave, others called him heartless. But he didn't care. He had done what he had to do. He sat alone in his apartment that night, the glow from the city lights painting shadows on his wall. The sound of generators hummed in the distance. He could still hear her voice echoing in his head. Her laughter, her promises, her soft whispers that once melted his heart. He had built his whole world around her, and now that world had burned to ashes. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. His mother called again. "My son, please pick up. Let's talk." But he ignored it. The pain was too raw, too fresh. He poured himself a drink, stared at it for a long time, then set it down untouched. He wasn't angry anymore. He was simply lost. The quiet felt heavier than noise. Then came a knock on his door. He hesitated, wondering who it could be at that hour. He opened it, and there she was, the bride, still in her ruined wedding dress. Her eyes were swollen, makeup smeared, hands trembling. "Please," she whispered, "let me explain." He wanted to slam the door in her face, but something held him back. Maybe it was pity, maybe unfinished love. "There's nothing left to explain," he said coldly. She stepped closer, tears streaming. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen." "A mistake?" he repeated, voice shaking. "You call betrayal a mistake?" "I was confused," she cried. "I didn't think you'd find out." He laughed bitterly. "That's the problem. You never think people will find out. You think lies can stay hidden forever." She fell to her knees. "Please forgive me. I love you." He looked down at her, his heart torn between anger and exhaustion. "Love," he said quietly. "If this is love, then I'd rather be hated." She tried to touch his leg. He stepped back. "Go home," he said. "There's nothing left here for you." She didn't move. "Please, I can't face the world. Everyone is laughing at me." "You made your choice," he replied, voice hard. "Now live with it." She covered her face, sobbing. "You don't understand. There's more to it. There's something you don't know." He frowned. "What are you talking about?" She lifted her head, eyes filled with fear, not guilt. "It wasn't just him," she whispered. "There are people behind this. I was trapped." "Trapped?" he repeated. "Stop lying." "I swear," she said desperately, "you don't know what's coming." But before she could say more, headlights flashed across the street. A black SUV parked nearby. She looked up suddenly, panicked. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered, then ran down the stairs and disappeared into the dark night. He stood at the doorway, confused and uneasy. Something about her fear felt real this time. He went back inside, closed the door, and sat down slowly. Her last words echoed in his mind. "You don't know what's coming." The night stretched long and heavy. He couldn't sleep. Outside, the black SUV was still parked, its engine idling quietly. The driver never stepped out. By dawn, he realized his nightmare was only beginning. What did she mean by "you don't know what's coming"? The groom thought the wedding was his revenge, but what followed next would shake Lagos to its core. He woke up the next morning to the sound of sirens in the distance. His head ached from lack of sleep, his heart heavier than ever. He walked to the balcony, watching the city wake up, street vendors shouting, children in school uniforms rushing past, danfos honking impatiently. Life went on, even when hearts broke. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something urged him to answer. "Good morning, sir. A calm male voice said, "We need to talk about your bride." He frowned. "Who's this?" "I'm calling from the police division, at Akoi. We found something you should see." Within an hour, he was there. The air inside the station smelled of dust and stale sweat. The officer, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, handed him a brown envelope. "Your ex-wife-to-be was found this morning," he said quietly. He froze. "Found? Found where?" "At a small guest house in Yaba. She was unconscious. Looks like an overdose." His heart skipped. "Is she?" "She's alive," the officer said, "but weak. We think it's more than just drugs. There's something suspicious. You might want to see her before she wakes up." He nodded numbly and followed the officer to the hospital. The corridor smelled of disinfectant and sorrow. He entered the room and saw her lying there, pale, fragile, hooked to tubes. The same woman who had destroyed his heart now looked like a ghost. He sat beside her bed, staring at her face. For the first time in days, he didn't feel hate. He felt pity. Whatever she had done, this was not how he wanted it to end. The nurse came in. "She's been mumbling your name since they brought her in." He sighed and looked at her again. Her lips trembled, as if trying to speak. "Why did you come back?" he whispered. "You should have just stayed away." Her eyes fluttered open slowly. When she saw him, tears gathered again. "You came?" "I didn't come for you," he said quietly. "I came for answers." She shook her head weakly. "It's too late now." "What do you mean?" "They won't stop," she whispered. "They wanted me to marry you. It was all planned." His blood ran cold. "Planned? By who?" But before she could answer, her body convulsed. Alarms beeped. Nurses rushed in, pushing him aside. He stood helpless as they tried to stabilize her. A doctor shouted for oxygen. Then silence. She lay still. The nurse turned to him slowly. "I'm sorry." He staggered backward, breathless. The walls seemed to close in on him. His mind spun with questions. Who were they? What did she mean by planned? As he walked out of the hospital, something glinted in the nurse's hand. A small chain they removed from the woman's wrist. He recognized it immediately. It wasn't hers. It belonged to his best friend. His hands trembled as he took it. The initials carved into it confirmed his fear. Maybe she hadn't been lying after all. The Lagos sky was gray that afternoon, heavy with the promise of rain. The air smelled like smoke and dust. The groom sat in his car at the hospital parking lot, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. His mind was spinning like a fan, without control. He couldn't shake off the image of her lifeless body, her last words echoing in his head. "They wanted me to marry you. It was all planned." He kept asking himself what she meant. Who were they? Why would anyone plan his wedding? He had worked for everything he owned. His company, his house, his peace. Everything came from sweat. Who would want to ruin that? And why use her of all people? He sat there for hours. Rain starting to fall, streaking down the windshield like tears. Lagos traffic crawled outside the hospital gates, horns blaring, people shouting under umbrellas. The world didn't care that his life had just cracked open again. His phone buzzed. It was his mother. He sighed and picked it up. "Where are you?" Her voice trembled. "I saw something online. People are saying she's dead." "She's gone," he said softly. Silence filled the line. Then she whispered, "My son, you need to come home. Whatever is happening, don't face it alone." He wanted to argue, but he was too tired. He started the engine and drove toward his family home in Surulere. The roads were slippery. He didn't notice the black SUV following him until he turned onto a quieter street. It kept a steady distance. Headlights dimmed. He frowned. Maybe it was just his imagination, or maybe he was being paranoid. But when he turned again and the SUV followed, his heart started to beat faster. He pressed the accelerator. The SUV matched his speed. By the time he reached his mother's compound, the car had disappeared. He sat there for a moment, breathing hard. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe he was just seeing shadows. But deep down, he knew it wasn't over. His mother opened the gate, her face full of worry. "Ah, you look like you've seen a ghost." He tried to smile. Maybe I have. Inside, she served him hot pepper soup, the kind that cleared the chest and mind. He ate slowly while she watched him with motherly suspicion. I warned you, she said. I told you to take your time before marriage. Mama, please, he said gently. Not now. I know, she said, sighing. But there's something strange about this whole thing. Even the way that girl looked at me on the introduction day. It wasn't normal. He looked up. What do you mean? She had fear in her eyes, his mother said. Like someone forced her to be there. He frowned. She said something like that before she died. His mother's spoon froze midair. What did she say? That it was planned. That someone made her marry me. His mother crossed herself. Ha! My God, oh, these people, who are they? I don't know, he said quietly, but I'm going to find out. That night he couldn't sleep. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. Every creak sounded like footsteps. He checked the window twice. On the third check, he saw something that made his heart freeze. A man standing under the streetlight across the road, wearing a dark cap, staring directly at the house. He stepped back quietly. When he looked again, the man was gone. The next morning, he drove straight to his office in Victoria Island. His staff whispered as he entered. The wedding scandal had reached everywhere, but he ignored the stares. He went to his office, locked the door, and began to dig into his ex-bride's background. He found strange things. Payments made into her account from an unknown source. Large sums sent every month. The name on the sender's profile chilled him. Crest Holdings Limited. He had never heard of them, but when he searched online, he found that Crest Holdings was a rival company, one that had tried to buy his business last year. He had refused to sell. Now it made sense. They wanted to destroy him. They had used love as a weapon. As he sat there, his door opened quietly. His best friend walked in. The same man who had introduced them. The same one who used to visit almost every day. Bro, he said carefully, I heard what happened. I'm sorry. The groom looked up at him for a long time, studying his face. Are you really? His friend shifted nervously. Of course. You know I'd never. Then why? The groom interrupted. Was your bracelet on her wrist? His friend froze. His eyes widened, his throat tightened. He laughed weakly. You must be mistaken. Am I? The groom said coldly. He opened his drawer, took out the chain from the hospital, and dropped it on the table. Explain. His friend swallowed hard. It's not what you think. Then what is it? The groom said, rising slowly. Was it you who recorded that video with her? No. I swear, he said quickly. It's not me, but I can't talk here. They're watching. Who? His friend looked toward the window nervously. You've made powerful enemies. You should leave Lagos before it's too late. Tell me who, the groom said again, voice low, controlled, dangerous. His friend hesitated, fear written all over his face. They're from Crest Holdings, he whispered. They used her to get to you, and now they'll come for both of us. The groom stared at him, rage boiling inside. Why didn't you tell me before? I couldn't, his friend said weakly. They threatened my family. I didn't know they'd go this far. The groom turned away, trying to think, trying to breathe. He didn't know whether to believe him or throw him out. Leave, he said finally, before I do something we'll both regret. His friend nodded and walked out quickly. But as the door closed, the groom's phone buzzed with a message. Unknown number. You should have listened when she warned you. We're watching. He looked out the window immediately. But the street below looked normal. Cars, people, noise, Lagos life as usual. But somewhere among that crowd, someone was watching him. His blood turned cold. This was no longer about love. This was war. The next few days passed in a blur. He barely slept. He hired a private investigator, a quiet old man named Mr. Kayode, who had worked for years in the Lagos police before retiring. Kayode had eyes everywhere. Within 48 hours, he brought back something that changed everything. They've been following you, Kayode said, dropping a brown envelope on the table. Inside were photos, men in dark shirts outside his house, cars parked near his office at odd hours, and they know you're digging into them. Who are they exactly? The groom asked. Crest Holdings, Keogh said. But not just them. There's a bigger network, money laundering, political connections. Your company was in their way. When you refused to sell, they decided to destroy you. The groom's jaw tightened. They used her? Yes, Keogh said. She was just a pawn. They paid her to get close to you, to access your company data. But I think she fell in love for real. That's why they silenced her. The room went quiet. She didn't overdose by mistake, Keogh said softly. She was poisoned. The groom leaned back, his chest heavy, anger rising like a tide. The truth hit harder than betrayal. He thought he had ended everything by exposing her, but he had only scratched the surface of a deeper darkness. What do they want now? He asked. Control, Keogh said. They'll stop at nothing until you give up your shares or disappear. He stood up slowly. Then we'll make them regret it. Keogh frowned. Careful, my boy. These are dangerous people. Revenge is sweet, but it can cost your life. He nodded but said nothing. Later that evening, as he drove home through Lekki, the streetlights flickered. He noticed the car behind him again. This time, no attempt to hide. It followed him through every turn. When he reached the toll gate, the car blocked his path. 3 men stepped out, faces covered, guns in hand. He froze. The world slowed down. Traffic horns, rain on the windshield, the flash of streetlights, it all blurred. One man banged on his window. Get out. He didn't move. Another man fired into the air. Drivers screamed. People scattered. He had no choice. He opened the door slowly. Mr. Perfect Groom, one of them sneered. Your mouth is too loud. Maybe you should learn silence. They dragged him out, pushed him to the ground, and kicked him. Pain shot through his ribs. He tasted blood. One man leaned close, breath hot on his face. Next time, he said, we'll visit your mother. Then they got into their car and sped off into the night. He lay there in the rain, coughing, bleeding, shaking with pain and fury. A crowd gathered, but he waved them off. He drove himself to the nearest clinic, patched up his wounds, and went home in silence. He couldn't tell the police. The last time he tried, the officer had warned him politely to stay out of trouble. He was alone in this fight now. The next morning, he went to see Keogh again. They attacked me. Keogh's eyes darkened. Then they're getting desperate. Good. Good, the groom said bitterly. They almost killed me. Keogh smiled faintly. It means they're scared. It means you're close to something. He handed him another file. Inside are names. 3 men tied to Crest Holdings. They moved the money. They arranged the threats. Hit them where it hurts, publicly. The groom opened the file. Faces, numbers, addresses. The kind of power men kill to protect. His eyes hardened. This won't end in court, he said. Keogh nodded slowly. I thought you'd say that. That night, he sat alone in his apartment. The file open on the table, rain drumming against the windows. For hours, he thought about everything. Love, betrayal, pain, and now revenge. Maybe peace was never his destiny. Maybe this was. He took a deep breath, picked up his phone, and made a call. It's time, he said simply. The voice on the other end replied. Are you sure you won't go this far? He stared at the rain outside. They started it. I'll finish it. He thought revenge would give him peace, but the next move would lead him into a trap no one could escape. The next morning, the sky was clear again. Lagos looked innocent, almost peaceful, but the calm only made his anger sharper. He dressed in a black suit, got into his car, and drove to the corporate tower where Crest Holdings had their office. He had a meeting arranged, under a fake pretext of reconciliation. When he entered, the receptionist smiled nervously, recognizing him from the scandal videos. Good morning, sir. Do you have an appointment? Yes, he said coldly. Tell your CO I'm here. Within minutes, a tall, bald man in a navy suit came out. His name was Chief Oakery, the man behind Crest Holdings. His smile was wide, false practiced. Ah, my dear young man. Finally, you agreed to see reason. I didn't come here for reason, the groom said quietly. I came for truth. Chief Oakry chuckled. Truth? My boy, Lagos doesn't run on truth. It runs on power. He led him inside a private office. The walls were lined with gold frames, air scented with imported perfume. You were too stubborn, Oakry said, pouring himself a drink. You could have sold your company and walked away rich. But no, you had to be righteous. Did you kill her? The groom asked suddenly. Oakry froze, then smiled again. Who? The woman you paid to betray me. Oakry sipped his drink slowly. You think too much. Sometimes people die from guilt. He leaned closer. But since you're here, let me give you advice. Forget this fight. Sell your company. Leave Lagos. Live. The groom's fist tightened. And if I don't? Oakry smiled wider. Then you'll disappear like she did. He stood up, turned a window, and looked out at the lagoon. You know what your problem is? You believe in love, in justice. Lagos eats men like you for breakfast. The groom said nothing. He simply stood up and left. But as he stepped outside, he whispered to himself, We'll see who gets eaten. That evening, he met with Coyote again. Together, they started leaking documents, bank transfers, fake contracts, secret deals. Within days, blogs started picking it up. Crest Holdings accused of fraud. New scandal rocks Lagos business world. It was spreading fast, but he knew they wouldn't stay silent. On the third night, someone broke into his apartment. He returned late and found the door open, papers scattered, his laptop gone. On the wall, written in red paint, were the words, You cross the line. He stood there quietly, breathing heavily. Then he smiled faintly. So have you. The next morning, the story made headlines. Oakry was arrested for questioning. But before the day ended, Coyote called him with bad news. They found your friend, Coyote said. Which one? Your best friend, the one who warned you. He's dead. He closed his eyes slowly. How? They made it look like a robbery. He said nothing. The silence stretched long, cold, heavy. Later that night, he drove to the lagoon bridge, parked by the rail, and stood watching the water move below. Lagos lights shimmered on the surface like broken stars. He felt tired, so tired, but something inside him refused to quit. He had already lost too much to stop now. He whispered to the wind, If this is revenge, then let it be complete. The morning after the murder felt like Lagos had swallowed the sun. Everything was dull, gray, and quiet, the way it gets after too many secrets have been spilled. He sat in his living room, the curtains drawn, staring at the newspaper headlines sprawled across his table. Businessman found dead in Lekki apartment. Possible connection to recent corporate scandal. His best friend's picture was right there, smiling, frozen in time. He clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. They had silenced him too. The phone rang again. He didn't bother checking the screen. He just answered. Stop whatever you're doing, a low voice warned. Walk away now before your mother becomes the next headline. He froze. Who is this? But the line went dead. He stood still for a moment, heart thudding against his ribs. Then he ran for his keys. Traffic was mad, as always. Every road in Lagos looked like it was boiling. Danfos fighting for space. Hawkers dodging bumpers. People shouting. He weaved through it all, driving faster than he should. When he finally got to his mother's house, the gate was wide open. Mama, he shouted as he rushed inside. She came out from the kitchen, holding a wooden spoon, eyes wide. What is it? Why are you shouting like a madman? He let out a long, shaky breath. Thank God. You're fine. She frowned. Of course I'm fine. What's going on? He didn't answer. He just hugged her tightly, the smell of stew and palm oil filling his nose, grounding him. When he pulled away, his hands were still shaking. Talk to me, she said softly. They killed my friend. She gasped. What? Who? The same people who destroyed my wedding. The same people who killed her. She sat down slowly, pressing her hand to her chest. Ah, my God! He looked around, eyes scanning every window, every corner. Mama, you can't stay here anymore. You're coming with me. Go where? She asked. Somewhere safe. But he knew nowhere in Lagos was truly safe. He moved her that night to a small guest house on the outskirts of Ape, where nobody would think to look. He paid the manager to keep her identity private. When she finally settled, she touched his cheek gently. "You're carrying too much pain, my son." He nodded. "I'll finish this, Mama. Then I'll rest." That night, he returned to the city, to his apartment filled with silence. The weight of loneliness pressed on him like heat. Revenge had given him purpose, but had also stripped him bare. He stood by the window, watching headlights pass below, and whispered to himself, "Almost over." But Lagos never let anything end quietly. The next day, Ko called him to meet near Yaba. "We have one more name," the old man said over the phone. Someone inside the system helping them. He met Ko in a small buka behind the railway tracks. The air smelled of grilled fish and diesel. They sat in a corner booth, speaking in low tones. The man is a government official. Ko said he's the one cleaning their records, protecting their money. "What's his name?" he asked. Ko slid an envelope across the table. He opened it and froze. It was someone he knew. Someone who had stood beside him at his engagement. Someone who had toasted to his happiness. "Are you sure?" he whispered. Ko nodded. "I confirmed it twice. He's the link between Crest Holdings and the people funding them." His stomach twisted. Betrayal within betrayal. He couldn't even keep track anymore of how many knives were in his back. "Where is he now?" he asked. "Hotel Continental 6, Ko said. "Room 509. But don't go alone. He's protected." He nodded, but he was already thinking ahead. That night, he went alone. The hotel lobby was quiet, air-conditioned, smelling of cologne and new money. He took the elevator up, his reflection staring back at him in the mirror, a man who no longer recognized his own face. When he reached the 5th floor, he walked slowly down the hall and knocked once. The door opened halfway. A familiar face peeked out, polished smile, fake warmth. "Ah, my brother," the man said, pretending to be surprised. "You should have called." He pushed the door open fully and stepped inside. "We need to talk." The man's smile faded. "About what?" "About why you're sending money to Crest Holdings." For a moment, silence. Then the man chuckled. "So you found out." "You used me," he said quietly. "You ruined my life." "Ruined," the man said. "You were collateral. Don't take it personal. Lagos is a jungle. Only lions eat. The rest get eaten." He felt something snap inside him. He grabbed the man by the collar, slamming him against the wall. "Tell me who's above you." The man laughed again, blood on his teeth. "You think killing me will fix anything? You think you're the first to lose everything in this city." He wanted to hit him, wanted to tear every lie apart. But something stopped him. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the voice of his mother echoing in his head. "Don't let evil make you one of them." He dropped the man and stepped back. "One day," he said quietly, "you'll answer for this." The man straightened his shirt. "Maybe, but not today." He walked out before he did something he couldn't take back. But as he entered the elevator, a text buzzed on his phone. Unknown number. "You've crossed too many lines. Say goodbye to Ko." His blood ran cold. He ran out of the building, jumped into his car, and sped through the streets toward Ko's small office. When he arrived, the lights were off. The door was slightly open. He pushed it gently. Ko was slumped over his desk, eyes open, a small wound on his neck. He dropped to his knees, shaking. "No, no." For a long time, he just sat there, staring at the old man who had tried to help him, who had become like a father in the middle of a storm. Lagos outside was loud as ever, people laughing, cars honking, life moving on, as if death meant nothing. He stood slowly, wiped his tears, and whispered, "You win." But even as he said it, something inside refused to die. He walked outside into the night. Rain started to fall again. He looked up at the sky, drenched, broken, whispering to no one, "You've taken everything. Now you'll see what's left of me." The rain did not stop for 2 days. Lagos felt washed, tired, restless. The groom locked himself indoors, Curtains drawn, lights off. The city's noise felt distant, like the hum of a generator far away. Grief turned to rage, and rage turned into focus. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for everyone they had destroyed. He took all the files Coyote had gathered and began organizing them, dates, transactions, photos. It was enough to burn down an empire. But he needed a stage. Somewhere public. Somewhere they couldn't silence him. He thought of the press. Then of social media. But they control that too. Then an idea came. The annual Business Integrity Gala. It was a charity event attended by every major figure in Lego's business scene, including Chief Oakery and his allies. Cameras everywhere. Politicians, journalists, celebrities. It would be perfect. He picked up his phone, called the event manager. "I'm sponsoring this year's charity segment," he said calmly. "Add my name to the program." The woman's voice was excited. "Of course, sir. We'll make sure you have your moment." He smiled faintly. "Oh, I'll have my moment." The night of the event came quickly. The hall glittered like a palace. Chandeliers, champagne glasses, bright ochre gowns, like banners that shimmered under light. The atmosphere was joy, wealth, and deceit. Every powerful man in Lego seemed to be there, including Oakery, seated at the front table, smiling like a king among thieves. When the announcer called his name, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some people whispered. Others lifted their phones to record. The man whose wedding had turned into a scandal was now on stage at a charity gala. Lagos never ran out of drama. He took the microphone calmly. "Good evening," he said, his voice echoing. "Tonight, we're here to celebrate integrity." Soft laughter followed, because everyone knew Lego's businessmen and integrity rarely sat at the same table. "But I have a confession," he continued. "Integrity doesn't live in Lagos anymore. It died, killed by greed, betrayal, and silence. People shifted uncomfortably. Oakery's smile began to fade. "I once believed in love, in friendship, in trust," he said. "But those things mean nothing when money decides who lives and who dies." He pressed a button on a small remote in his hand. The giant screen behind him flickered to life. Bank statements, photographs, recorded calls. The crowd gasped. "Crest Holdings," he said slowly, "has been laundering money for years. These men you clap for every day, these same men you beg for contracts, are killers wearing suits." Cameras flashed. Security moved toward the stage. But before they could reach him, he said loudly, "If anything happens to me tonight, this data goes to every media house in the country. So go ahead, try." The hall erupted in chaos. People shouted, journalists filmed, guests fled. Chief Oakery stood up, face red with fury. "You don't know what you're doing." "Oh, I do," he said calmly. "I'm doing what no one else has the courage to." The lights flickered. For a moment, everything went dark. When they came back on, Oakery was gone. He walked out slowly, surrounded by whispers and flashing lights. Outside, the night air felt electric. Sirens wailed in the distance. Lagos was awake again, hungry for another scandal. As he got into his car, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You think this ends with truth? Look behind you." He turned, too late. A figure stepped out of the shadows. A gunshot cracked the air. He felt the burn tear through his side, stumbled, fell against his car. The shooter vanished into the darkness. People screamed. Someone shouted for help. He pressed his hand against the wound, blood warm between his fingers. The city lights blurred, spinning above him like stars drowning in water. He could hear faint sirens, running feet, voices calling his name. But all he could think of was his mother and Ape, safe, waiting for him. He smiled faintly through the pain. At least she was safe. Then everything went black. The world came back to him in pieces, sirens shouting, flashing red and blue lights. The smell of petrol, the sting of smoke. His chest rose and fell slowly, painfully. Someone was pressing cloth against his side, yelling, "Stay with me. Don't sleep, Olga." He tried to open his eyes, but everything was bright and spinning. He felt the rough road under him, wet from the evening rain. Voices blurred. When he finally woke again, it was morning. White ceiling, beeping monitor, the slow rhythm of a hospital ward. A nurse noticed him stir. "You're lucky, sir," she said softly. "The bullet missed your organs. You'll heal." He blinked, throat dry. "How long?" "2 days," she said. "Police came. You're safe here." Safe! The word sounded strange now. He turned his head carefully. On the chair beside his bed sat a familiar figure. His mother, wrapped in a simple ankara, rosary in hand, eyes swollen from crying. When she saw him awake, she gasped and ran to his side. "My son," she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You scared me. I thought I'd lost you." He managed a weak smile. "I promised you I'd finish it, Mama. Just didn't know it would try to finish me first." She held his hand tightly. "Enough of this revenge. Let it end here." He looked at her, the only pure thing left in his world, and wanted to agree. But deep inside, something still burned. Keod was gone. His best friend was gone. The woman who once called him husband was gone. And the men who caused it all were still walking free. When the nurse left, his mother lowered her voice. "A man came here yesterday. He said his name is Damilair. He gave me a flash drive for you. Where is it?" She handed it to him. He said Keod trusted him before he died. He said this is what they killed him for. He stared at the tiny silver device in his palm. It looked harmless, but he knew better. He hid it beneath his pillow. Later that night, when his mother dozed off, he plugged the flash drive into the hospital's old laptop. Folders appeared. Contracts, offshore accounts, recordings. But one file caught his eye. Confession. He clicked it. Keod's voice filled the room. "If you're hearing this, my boy, I'm gone. Crest Holdings isn't just a company. It's a mask. Behind it are politicians, police chiefs, and even a pastor who launders their money through churches. They use your fiancé to get to your business because your software could expose them. She tried to protect you in the end. That's why they killed her. Finish what I started. But don't die for it, live to win." He closed his eyes. Tears rolled down silently. The truth was heavier than the pain in his ribs. She had tried to save him after all. He had hated her for nothing. He looked at the cross hanging on the wall and whispered, "I'm sorry." The next morning, 2 plainclothes officers came to question him. They asked polite, meaningless things. What he remembered, if he saw the shooter, if he still had enemies. He watched them carefully. Their questions were too smooth, too rehearsed. When one of them accidentally let a small gold crest pin glint from his sleeve, he understood. They weren't there to protect him. They were there to confirm he was still alive. That night, he told his mother to go home to ape again, promising he'd follow soon. When she left, he signed his discharge papers against medical advice, stepped into the humid night air, and disappeared. He couldn't go home. He couldn't call anyone. But he had Keod's files, and with them, a final weapon. He rented a small one-room apartment in the back of Bariga. No neighbors asking questions, no CCTV. The room smelled of dust and kerosene, but it was enough. He set up an old laptop, connected through a public Wi-Fi line, and began uploading the files anonymously. Every document, every audio clip, every photo went to dozens of journalists, bloggers, and activists. He didn't sleep. The rain returned, steady like the rhythm of a drum. By morning, Lagos had caught fire again. Not literal flames, but the kind of scandal that burned reputations to ash. Headlines everywhere screamed. Secret network of corruption exposed. Businessman leaks evidence. Police and politicians linked to money laundering empire. Crest Holdings' office was sealed by noon. Chief Oakery went into hiding. 2 ministers resigned before sunset. From his small window, he watched the chaos unfold. He felt no joy, only quiet release. Justice in Lagos never walked in daylight. It crept like smoke. But at least, for once, the smoke was moving the right way. Still, danger hadn't ended. Around midnight, as he sat eating cold rice, someone knocked softly on his door. He froze. The knock came again, gentle, measured. He reached for the small knife under his pillow. "Who's there?" "It's me," a woman's voice said. He frowned. That voice. It couldn't be. He opened the door a crack and froze. She stood there, the bride, alive. He stared at her like a man seeing a ghost. "You're dead." She shook her head weakly. No, they faked it. They needed you to stop looking. I escaped last week. He pulled her inside quickly, locking the door. Her face was thinner, eyes sunken, arms trembling. You should have stayed gone, he whispered. I had to find you, she said. You think it's over, but it's not. Okri is gone, yes, but the man funding him isn't. He's coming for you next. He swallowed hard. Who? She hesitated. Someone you know. Before she could finish, a loud thud shook the door. She gasped. They found me. He grabbed her hand. Back window. They ran into the small backyard, rain slapping against their faces. Two men in black jumped the fence, shouting. He pushed her ahead, ducked behind a shed, grabbed a broken bottle. When the first man lunged, he swung hard. The man screamed and dropped. The second fired a shot. The bullet grazed his arm. He charged anyway, slammed into him, both of them falling into the mud. The gun skidded away. He grabbed it first. The man froze, hands up. You don't want to do this. He stared at him through the rain. You're right, he said, lowering the gun slightly. I don't want to. But the woman raised a broken bottle and finished what he couldn't. They stood there panting, soaked, the smell of blood mixing with rain and rust. She dropped the bottle and began to sob. I didn't want this anymore. I just wanted to be free. He pulled her close, his arm bleeding. Then we ended together. They left the bodies behind and disappeared into the night. The next morning, news spread again. 2 unidentified men found dead in Bariga. The press called it gang violence. Nobody looked deeper. He and the woman hid in an old fisherman's hut near Bariga, surrounded by mangroves and the smell of salt. For the first time in months, silence felt gentle. At dusk, she sat beside him, eyes on the water. You should hate me, she whispered. He looked at her quietly. I did, but hate only chained me to them. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I'm sorry for everything. I know. They sat like that for a long time, the sea breathing softly around them. That night, as the wind blew through the broken windows, he finally slept without fear. But morning came with footsteps outside. She shook him awake. They found us again. He reached the gun. Then we run once more. No, she said firmly. Running never ends. It's time we finish this. How? By going to the man at the top. He frowned. You know who it is? She nodded. Yes, and you won't like it. The morning heat hung thick over the Bariga coast. Waves rolled lazily against the sand while gulls screamed above. He stood by the water, wind in his face, listening as she explained the truth he thought he already knew. The man funding everything, she said quietly, is someone close, someone you still call brother. He turned to her sharply. My brother? I have no brother. I don't mean blood, she said. The man who first introduced us. He froze. His chest went hollow. My best friend. She nodded slowly. Yes, he was never just your friend. He was working for Crest before you even met me. Okri used him to bring me into your life. When you started asking questions, they pretended he was dead. The body you saw, it wasn't him. He stumbled back, breath catching in his throat. No, I saw his face. You saw what they wanted you to see, she said. He's alive, and he's coming tonight. The sea seemed to grow louder. His hands trembled slightly. All those nights they'd shared drinks, all the laughter, the promises of brotherhood. Every memory now felt poisoned. What does he want? He asked. She looked at the horizon. To finish what he started. He'll kill you and disappear with the remaining money. I heard him talking on the phone last week. He clenched his jaw, then let him come. That evening, they left the hut and returned to city. They hid in an unfinished building near Marina, waiting. He could feel every sound, the rustle of plastic bags, the whistle of the wind through broken concrete. The woman sat beside him, hands clasped tight. Neither spoke for a long time. Around midnight, headlights flashed below. A black SUV stopped by the road. The man who stepped out was dressed simply. Black shirt, jeans, confidence. When he looked up toward the building, he smiled. So it's true, he said, his voice echoing. You're still alive." The groom stepped forward, his silhouette framed by the moonlight. "You should have stayed buried." His former friend laughed lightly. "You made it this far. I'm impressed, but this ends tonight." He climbed the stairs slowly, gun in hand. His steps were calm, measured. The groom waited, heart pounding, every muscle tense. When they finally stood face to face, there was no anger left, only the sadness of two men who had once shared everything. "Why?" the groom asked quietly. "Why betray me?" The friend shrugged. "Money, power. Lagos doesn't reward honesty. I offered you away and you refused. So I used you." "You used her too," he said, nodding toward the woman. "She was paid well," the man said coldly, "until she forgot her role." The woman stepped forward, voice trembling. "You destroyed lives." He smiled. "I built my own. That's how Lagos works." The groom took a step closer. "Then let's finish this." They moved almost at the same time. The flash was bright, the sound deafening. 2 shots, 1 scream, then silence. For a moment, he didn't know who had fallen. Smoke drifted in the moonlight. Then he saw the gun slide across the floor and his former friend clutch his chest, blood spreading fast. The woman stood behind him, shaking, the pistol still smoking in her hand. He stared at her, breathing hard. "You shot him." She dropped the gun. "He would have killed you." He looked at the man on the floor, eyes already dimming, lips moving without sound. "You could have walked away," the groom whispered. The man tried to speak, but no words came. He went still. Rain began again, sudden and heavy. It washed over the floor, carried the blood into dark cracks. They buried the body deep behind the abandoned site before dawn. No witnesses, no noise. Lagos swallowed another secret. When the sun rose, they sat on the pavement, soaked and silent. The city woke slowly, hawkers shouting, buses honking, people rushing to work. Life didn't pause for anyone. She turned to him, her voice small. "What happens now?" He looked at her, eyes tired but calm. "Now we stop running. And the files, they've already done their work," he said. "Okri's arrested. The ministers are gone. The rest will eat themselves." She nodded. "And us?" He was quiet for a long time. Then he said softly, "You should leave Nigeria. Start again. You deserve peace." Her eyes filled with tears. "What about you?" "I'll stay," he said. "There's still people who need to rebuild what they destroyed." She reached for his hand. "I'm sorry for everything." He held her fingers gently. "So am I." They sat like that as the city brightened around them. 2 broken people watching the light return. By afternoon, she boarded a small bus heading west. She looked out of the window one last time. He stood on the roadside, hands in pockets, face unreadable. When the bus disappeared into the crowd, he finally turned and walked away. Weeks passed. Lagos slowly forgot the scandal. New news replaced old pain. Crest Holdings went into liquidation. Okri died mysteriously in custody. Reporters called the groom a hero, but he never gave interviews. He spent his days rebuilding his company quietly, focusing on real work, hiring people who needed second chances. One evening, he drove to Ape. His mother's garden was blooming again, purple hibiscus dancing in the breeze. She came out smiling, wiping her hands on her wrapper. "You look lighter," she said. "I let it go," he answered simply. She hugged him tightly. "Good. Maybe now peace will know your name." They sat together under the mango tree as the sun went down, the air full of crickets and smoke from distant fires. For the first time in a long while, he felt the world breathe again. He looked at the sky and thought of everyone he'd lost. The friend who turned enemy, the woman who betrayed and then saved him, the old man who believed in him. Their ghosts would always follow him, but no longer in anger, only as lessons. He whispered to himself, "Revenge doesn't build anything, but truth does." When the night finally settled, he closed his eyes and smiled, a small, honest smile that reached the soul. Somewhere far away, in another country, a woman watched the sea and whispered his name to the wind. Both of them, in their own corners of the world, had finally found peace. In Legos, love can build you or burn you. Betrayal can break a man, but it can also reveal his strength. The groom found his revenge, but in the end, peace was the real victory. If you believe truth always finds its way to the light, type "Truth Wins" in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story. Because somewhere out there, another heart is learning that forgiveness is the final revenge.